this education available to everyone. This in-depth knowledge about space, innovating products, and performing experiments can lead to innumerable opportunities in the field of science. Good evening. I welcome you to the third session of Junoon JML, in which we present a new and exciting topic for discussion. Before we begin, I would like to introduce today's speakers and the organization incorporated by them. Astrophilia is a growing startup headed by Mr. Ibrahim Wasi and Ajay Sapkale. Both have a deep-rooted passion for education and space, which they seek to share with the world. Ibrahim is an alumnus from the JML batch of 2014 and was also a student in the ISC science section of our school. Prior to Astrophilia, he worked in the medical design field in areas ranging from sports rehabilitation products to design for the cognitively impaired. He is also a budding musician pursuing his music. Ajay is originally from Indore and has a background in science. He has also won awards in design. He also has provisional patents out on other original products. Ibrahim and Ajay have studied and graduated from the product design course at NIT. They have worked together a lot in the last 4 years. They have worked and received grants from a few institutes like IIM Innosity and NID's own incubator to build their startup and grow their research. They have also worked with the Vikram Sarabhai Science Center in Ahmedabad and with a few schools in Gujarat as well, where they have conducted workshops and space science sessions. They share a love for space science, and it was this very passion that drew them to start Astrophilia. We now invite Mr. Ajay and Mr. Ibrahim to share a presentation about Astrophilia.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for that introduction. I'll get right into it. I hope everyone can see. So we are Astrophilia. This is just going to be a short introductory presentation of a few minutes to get everyone acquainted.
Yeah. So hello, I am Ajay, and so let's begin this story of space and humanity here. So actually, it all started back when the ancient human tried to figure out and make sense of the patterns that they used to see in the skies, and then use the constellations to find their way back home, and creating tales and folks from up the heavens, as we call it. So this curiosity and this will to explore grew over generation and over time, and that will to explore landed us on the moon in 1969. And 1960s was an era of exponential technological development in space sector. And decades after that, this growth became a little slower. But what happened after 2000 was many private companies entered the space sector, and it is growing at a rapid pace since then. And there are changes in motivation, and space for race is back again. So we as Astrophilia work under space and space science education. So let me tell you how these two things are connected. So as I mentioned earlier that in 1960s, it was an era of exponential development in space technologies. But it was actually a race between two nations, USA and Russia, and which was called USSR back then. So the Russians put the first satellite into orbit in 1959, which was called Sputnik, and the Americans took it as their defeat. So apart from spending their money and resources in their space program and space research, they ramped up their efforts in their education sector and completely changed the system within a decade. And we know what happened after one decade. In 1969, they became the first country to land a human on the moon. So yeah, I mean, this shows us the impact education has over space industry, or let's say any other industry. So it all actually started for us for Astrophilia back in our final year in our academic journey, where we were studying the outreach and PR section, public relations section of Indian space program, and that is where we realized that the groundwork, the education part of it, space science is missing from Indian education system. And we conducted a few workshops with the kids of various age groups from different institutions and schools like Vikram Sarabhai Community Science Center, and trying to create something out of their curiosity and interest towards space. And this actually became the foundation for astrophilia.
Yeah, and yeah, like Ajay said, that was the basis to why we started doing what we did. And at our core, we are both product designers. We have graduated from that program, and we thought the ways of us making a difference in that, because we are both space nerds. And so to design a system of interconnected products and things that from an unconventional way teaches kids about space science and even complex physics and mathematics concepts in through games, through technology and other things that are they're different, through experimentation, through hands-on learning, and the concept of drawing their own conclusions, and how could we design products and ideas that are interconnected in a way like that. So that led to the purpose of what Astrophilia is here for, what we are trying to do with this vision of ours. Which, yeah, so unfortunately, right now, I can't give out too many details about the products that are in the pipeline, which are going to be launched soon from Astrophilia. In the upcoming months, we will also be having an online competition on space science, which eventually, I guess we will also share the details of as soon as it goes live. And so, yeah, these products are meant to be interactive. They're meant to explain different concepts. And coming to the main reason why we're doing what we're doing is to establish and work on space science laboratories in Indian schools. And even if it's just a part of a physics lab, a chemistry lab, but a space where kids can enjoy experimenting with rockets, experimenting with satellites, with other million other things that are associated with space, and in a way that is not, academically pressured or something like that. Which, yeah, so that's what we are trying to accomplish. And yeah, so the vision, if I were to break that entire thing down into a nutshell, is providing affordable, adaptable, and sustainable space science education in Indian schools, in the Indian scenario. Because our space science program, ISRO, has made monumental strides in space in recent years, and our awareness in space is higher than ever. Both industries currently are in a state of flux. In the education industry, most definitely, and space with changing policies, with access to the internet, and with things that didn't exist, not forget 10 years ago, didn't exist 3 years ago. So that is the idea behind Astrophilia. Thank you. I'll hand it back.
So we extend our gratitude to you for being a part of our session. We truly, truly appreciate it. And so we'll just begin with a round of questions. And I would like to just ask you all, what started your passion for space and product designing as such, as you all have gone to NID and eventually you all have started Astrophilia? So what started this pursuit of yours?
So I suppose we are both space nerds, and even though we've had two different upbringings to the world of space, where from my personal point of view, I was really interested in space as a kid, and somewhere along the way, I think that sort of drifted away into more practical things like motorcycles and cars. But and I think I refound this project and the love for space when I started doing this project. Ajay has a different story completely to why he really loves space.
So I actually, it was my interest throughout, and I never let it go. So I kept reading about space, and yeah, it has always fascinated me. So once we got this opportunity to work on this project, and that is when we thought, yeah, we cannot let it go.
Yeah.
So that is when we decided that we should work on this and take it forward.
Yeah, as I think as far as product design goes, both of us are we chose the discipline because of the love of making things and the love of tinkering, taking things apart, seeing how they work, putting them back together, optimizing them, getting them to work properly, and for the intrinsic joy of creating something that is new. I mean, that whole idea and how to and the range that product design and uh, provides you with, in the sense where you could design a spoon, or you could design a jet engine, and it would a jet, and while obviously the nitty gritties of design are different and everything, but the process you would follow has a similarity to it, and that I think is rather elegant, that you could apply a singularity to design. Maybe that brings us one step closer to an actual singularity, but that's, yeah. So that's, I think, how we are both working on, been industrial product designers and space nerds at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it's great to hear both of your stories and how y'all have combined your love for product designing and now y'all are doing something related to space. As you all know, ISRO has made great strides in the last 20 years. But what are your views on the Indian space industry today?
So yeah, like I said, the Indian space industry it's done a lot with Chandrayaan, with Gaganyaan, although it is a newer step. I mean, compared to organizations like NASA in the US, the European Space Agency, JAXA, and these organizations that have been around for a really long time, we are relatively new. And while those strides have been made, there are certain lacking areas in the operations, just in the sense where our outreach sector, which is rapidly changing, and that is also one of the things that we are trying to do, and how the Indian space program has, where it used to be in space used to be a complete ivory tower, and where had no idea what the government was doing with the space industry, what ISRO was doing. That's not the case anymore. And I think, yeah, our views on the Indian space program are there, that its potential is limitless, and with the changing environment around it, it needs the youth of this country to support it, and it needs the youth of this country to pursue it. And that's the main reason we're doing what we're doing. I think both of us we're way past any sort of astronaut career. So I mean, as much as we would probably like to be astronauts, right now it's probably not going to happen until commercial space flight is available for everybody. But yeah, if Ajay has anything to add to
You
that.
covered pretty much everything about it. So
Yeah, I think that's on the Indian space program.
Yes, so we can all be proud of ISRO and the work they've done, and it's just going to go upwards from here because of the potential they have and the entire passion we have now that y'all are also inculcating in our students. So, as you started Astrophilia, so what were your achievements and what were the struggles of you starting the company?
I think at a very human and frank level, we're both we don't have any background with running a business, either of us. But I think that was a really welcome challenge to the both of us to start something of our own. I think we were really blessed to have an academic umbrella that we both worked our final year on this project, and I think it's been about 2 years since we began now, and I think, if not more excited than when we started. So I suppose that does count for something. So as far as the problems go, yeah, running a business and starting a business and the nitty gritties of all that is something that we've been navigating through for a long time now. Additionally, I think a really important thing that I just read was that design is easy, production is hard. To have an idea is important. It's one part of it, but it is most definitely not the whole thing. It's not like, yeah.
yeah, I mean, having an idea and then is good enough. It's not good enough. The execution part is where you need to pay more attention. I mean, you have to put that idea in public, and now you have to provide them with something good. And that is where you realize that you are not the only person that is required to make this idea to a reality, and convert it into reality, and put the product in front of the end user. So it teaches us how many people are actually involved in providing you with something good. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also a challenge that we will face now on a much grander scale, that we're trying to be commercial in our project. So yeah, I mean, that's where we are currently.
Thank you. I think it's true when we say that every idea is just the beginning of a huge process and you all have a long way to go. I would like to ask you all, did you all have any space heroes as a child? Someone who you looked up to when you heard the name space?
Actually, whether it's probably for me, science fiction played a really huge role in my love for space. Luke Skywalker, Star Wars, all these that depicted traveling, the vastness and the enormity of space was inspiring. And while we do have role models in business and in people who have been successful, that feels more on a ambitious level rather than a personal level, where on a personal level it would be characters, would be creations. I'm sure a lot of people in this generation also are inspired by comics, are inspired by um, uh, Marvel and DC and things like that. And I mean, like cartoons. Cartoons was a huge thing. And another thing that we're trying to bring to our project is the importance of science fiction. So many things would not exist if it actually hadn't been dreamt up in some sort of science fiction show or movie. And there we have certain, maybe if we can dream it, then it's possible.
Yeah.
So that was the whole inspiration part of it.
Yeah, even for me, I think it was more of science fiction. In real life, it was Kalpana Chawla. I mean, I saw the re-entry, Columbia re-entry in 2003. I was a 5-year kid back then. But apart from that, science fiction has played a lot of it has played a huge role on keeping the interest as it is now. And mostly books, the Foundation series from Asimov, and the stories about Empire. That is what kept the interest growing.
Yeah, I think as far as role models are there,
So for a lot of people, for a lot of youngsters right now, when we do consider space and we talk about space, we hear a lot of words like SpaceX or Blue Origin, these privatized companies which are started by Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, the richest man currently. And they also went to space, I believe, a few days back. So this privatization of space exploration and space travel, how do you feel about this? Because it's always been the government's doing it, and now there's a lot of change happening in the sector. So what do you think it means for future space travel and exploration?
I think it's impossible to ignore the push that space has achieved because of these private companies, and how far we've actually gone in a very short time, thanks with the what Elon Musk has accomplished and stuff like that. I understand, due to recent events, it's a slightly controversial topic regarding what has been happening with these multi-billionaires going to space. Leaving the politics of that aside, it's important, I think, to understand the place of individual efforts in the space race, as it is 2.0, as it is now being referred to as. Also, I think a good example of what this was in the past as well is what the applications of space technology. So many things that we use today in our daily lives were originally developed for use in space, or by the aeronautical industry, by NASA under closed covers and secrecy and stuff like that. I think we can, if you guys would like to guess which these products might be, I think there's a question that we can ask. But yeah, the answer would probably surprise you in a lot of ways. That so many things have been developed just for space.
Yeah, I think we can run the poll for the products.
The products. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, as in the role of that whole thing being. Additionally, what another really important point I think in that whole sector is that space is no longer for the prodigiously smart mathematicians, physicists, and scientists. I'm not discounting the role that is required in that has, but as far as a career in space is concerned, as far as that whole space is concerned, there are so many colleges around the world now that are opening programs in space economics, that are opening programs in space law, and in a plethora, wide variety of outcomes and related to space. And with private companies, that whole area basically becomes limitless. It becomes limitless. So I mean, while I think, yeah, I'm rambling, but while the area is actually it was originally developed for military purposes, but we can't ignore the push that these companies and these multi-billionaires have had on the industry at a fundamental level.
So let's just
exactly. So we've got the results of the poll.
Yeah, the results of the poll. So yeah. So the right answer was all of them. They were all developed for use in space. So yeah, wireless headphones, water purifiers, MRI scans. Believe it or not, baby formula was developed for astronauts. So yeah, I think that there's so many more of those.
Yeah,
probably take us.
You will be completely
surprised.
That
yeah, and that
these
is
are the things that we use in daily life, but they were developed for space for astronauts. And these things will keep coming when we move ahead in space technology.
Yeah, and as far space technology as far as is concerned is it's growing. It's growing at a rate, and we are not quite there to be living in space or something like that right now. So, but we're getting there, and that's like the USA put their efforts into education. It's our belief that once we put our efforts into education, there is also, I mean, then if you want to pardon my pun, the stars are also not the limit. But yeah, and actually another question that I can ask is, how long do you think we can send the poll? What is the longest do you think that somebody has actually spent in space? We can release that poll also while maybe we take the next question.
Yeah. So the next question is, as we saw in the PPT, you showed certain rocket launchers which you had given to the children. So what are the kind of products you're working on? Some details you could share?
Sure. Unfortunately, I can't go into too much detail, but an example of the kind of work that we are doing is experimental gamification. So, for example, it would be a rocketry kit that has teaches kids how rockets are made in real life. For example, so how much of a rocket is really the fuel tank? It's 90% of the rocket, and like 7% of the rocket is the engine, and the last 3% is the astronauts in the little capsule on the top. And obviously, the rocket that put men on the moon is not the rocket that puts a satellite orbiting around Earth. They're built differently, they're designed differently. And to the layman, that is not something that you think about when you think about rocketry. You think about how high it can go and how fast it can go. It is the fastest vehicle that we have ever created. So it's I mean, so that would be where kids can use that toy, that kit, to build rockets differently, to understand how, okay, if I put one more fuel tank or one more stage of rocket above this, how will it affect my distance? How will it affect my power? Maybe the rocket becomes too heavy, or so, okay, so if there's so much fuel, maybe I need a stronger engine, or those kind of things. So where you experiment and you draw your own conclusions, and then we would be providing like online resources and stuff where you can corroborate your ideas. Oh, okay, that's what happened. That's what they really did while building the Saturn V. That's what they really did with Apollo 13. And of course, with them, it was life and death. And to get that inspiration behind building and behind the process, the scientific method of, okay, if this doesn't work, maybe something. Another one is a very less explored topic of space, which is the economics of space. It's so one of the things that we have developed is a card game and board game about the economics of space, where you can essentially understand that space is run, like the ISS is run by the people on Earth. The reason it's there is because there are thousands of people all the time working to make sure that it's running. So an idea where the players are corporations trying to launch their rocket, and it's resource collection and mishaps. Maybe your astronaut gets kidnapped, or your co-player sabotages you, or those kind of things. So making a game out of otherwise complicated topics. We're not trying to educate people about how economics is, or what the structure of this economics of space is, but enough to open a dialogue in between people regarding that. So I mean, if one person opens up a space economics page or discusses how expensive it is in reality to launch a rocket, that would be a win for us. I mean, so yeah, I think if there's any other,
I think that is pretty much.
that is, we can reveal a little bit about the things that we're working on like that. I hope that was enough.
It is very fascinating when you talk about space economics and how you'll have conveyed it through board games and card games. It's something that will help students grasp the topic better, I feel. And we've also got the results of the poll that we had sent out. What is the longest continuous time a human being has spent in space? And we've got 57% of our audience saying that it's over 400 days.
There, you guys are right. It's above. It was 437 days, and it was in 1950s.
1993 to 94.
Not 50. Sorry, 1993 to 94.
By
when
a
Russian cosmonaut who stayed there for little over a year.
437.
437 days. And in space, it alters your body composition. You become a little taller, and so yeah, because of the lack of gravity up there. So there are a lot of physiological changes that were studied when he came back. So it's, if anybody wants to read about that, that's something really cool to see how long somebody can actually survive up there in space, and the kind of physical and mental toll that it can possibly take on a person. Not to dissuade, it's probably really, really cool up there.
But meanwhile, we can play the fun music video from.
We can play. So it's so many things have happened besides, they're not just running around and they're running science experiments. They are, but things like we can play a short clip of the first music video that was recorded and produced in Space Oddity by David Bowie, which was sang and performed by astronaut Chris Hadfield in like 30-40 seconds of it.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on.
10,
Ground control to Major Tom.
7, 6,
Commencing countdown, engines on.
3, 2,
Detach from station and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear.
So yeah, I mean, it's also Chris Hadfield has done a lot of outreach for through things like this and stuff like that. So he would be, if some people want to learn about the
Life on ISS.
life on the International Space Station, it would be like his YouTube and his social media is a really good way to understand that, to understand what kind of food they eat and all the nitty-gritties of daily life is really different when you can't sit down with without yourself strapped in so you don't float away. So yeah, I mean, that's about it for like we digressed a little bit, but I hope it's fine.
No, we truly appreciate it. And also this video really shows us a lot. Like there are lots of misconceptions about space and space science and how you need to be a master at physics or you need to be a master at mathematics. But there is a lot of misconceptions when you talk about space. Could you probably tell us a bit more about those and how you are trying to tackle them
Sure.
more?
Space, I mean, to the public, it's a new place to be. It's a new space to be in. And I think the biggest misconception is what we've been saying, what you also just said, that it's for only the best and the brightest of humanity. Only. I mean, if it was only for the best and brightest of humanity at all points, we wouldn't be where we are. It's not that you have to be some sort of a genius at birth to do that. I'm not discounting the role again, but the space industry, even right now, the number of people that it takes to run one spacewalk for one astronaut to leave the International Space Station, there are hundreds of people on Earth scrambling to tell them what to do and stuff like that. I mean, stuff where it's somebody has to plan out what the budget is to build a massive rocket, and the kind of rockets that have been built and the kind of budgeting that has been done for somebody who's interested in that, even at a young age. I mean, how expensive is a toy rocket or a paper plane that you throw in class? But and how much more are you going to need to build a rocket that's real? And the differences in how much, I think there is thousands of dollars for if you want to send 1 kilo of something into space. So yeah, I think another poll question that we can probably ask now is, what do you think is the largest rocket that has ever been launched by us, by human beings? So we can put that poll up as well. So yeah, if there's anything other misconceptions about
we can
this
move on
industry.
to the next question, I can see.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest misconception about space, and the one that we want to tackle is that it used to be an ivory tower, and people still think it's this shrouded in mystery, these geniuses in big round glasses and lab coats sitting with armed guards watching them so they don't take secrets and escape. I mean, that probably happens, but that's not all it is.
Thank you. with changing technology and new changes, we have seen that now there are a lot of jobs in the space sector. So, what would be your one piece of advice you could give to a 11th or a 12th grader who wants to do something related to space exploration?
I think um, I think probably 11th or 12th might be a little later in terms of getting into a career, which is why we are trying to be, as a company, a little bit tackle a little earlier age group. But even at that age, I think that if somebody wants to do it, there are avenues and there are ways to accomplish that goal. And there are, I think, without me sounding too corny or too cliche to just go and do what you really want to do. I mean, I think that's also where examples of just we are doing what we want to do right now, and so I think that applies. That applies even if you want to be the first person to the first sportsman in space, the first football player, or the first race car driver. I think probably maybe I don't know. Who knows? I mean, that's my point. That who knows? But just there is always a path to it. Is what I can say without possibly sounding too cliche about doing it, and we'll do our best to help and open up those roads and try and have a little clarity around those pathways. So I think that's what we're trying to do basically. We're trying to have clarity around the pathways to do this for anybody and everybody who wants to. Yeah.
We've got the results for the poll.
Yeah.
So we have 46% of the audience saying Saturn 5.
Yeah,
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah,
Saturn V was used used in Apollo era where it was used to launch first humans to the moon.
Neil Armstrong got to the moon because of the Saturn V.
Yes.
It is the largest, heaviest rocket that we have ever built, and it was built in 1969. It is now 2021. So, I mean, I think that's testament to the power of education. When not 10 years ago, Sputnik was launched, and that was just a beeping metal ball that was put around space. That's all it was. And 10 years after that, we put yeah. So I think that's a real testament to the
Thank you. This was our last question. I would like to extend a warm welcome towards the both of you. We would now be moving on to the audience round where Uditi will be taking over. Thank you.
So if any of our audience members have any questions that they would like to ask our speakers for today, we just put it down in the chat box and Uditi will moderate them.
Yes, thank you. So we'll just wait till we receive the audience questions. I have one question. Could you please tell us how and when can we participate in the online competition that you will be holding? And
Sure.
how could one purchase the products that you all have designed?
Yeah, of course. So currently our products are in the pipeline, and in the latter part of this year, we're going to have the online competition possibly around October and November, and the product launch will be the same time, and our products would be available from the website also at that time. Currently, these things are under development as of now for our fun space facts, and also what we are doing and how we are doing it. We have our social media is up and running. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn are running, and also when the products will be launched and stuff like that is just going to be announced on that, and it will be soon. Actually, it would have been possibly earlier than that, unfortunately, because of what's been happening lately, the second wave and the threat of a looming third wave, God forbid, is have to render us also a little careful to run these programs and put things into production. So we are going to do it as soon as we can, and yeah, and definitely by the latter half of this year, in a couple of months, they'll be out.
All right. We have one more question. What are some of the projects you all have worked on during your schooling which brought you closer to creating Astrophilia?
I think Ajay is better equipped to take this question. He's been more a vocal champion for space ever since I've known him. So
I mean, I haven't worked on the projects on any projects during my school years, but I actually kept reading about space and whatever. I mean, whatever material I could get, I could just I could just start reading it and finish it within an hour, within 2 hours. So that is what kept kept the interest alive.
I think another interesting anecdote, if that would suffice, is that at one point, I think both of us, our schooling, I'm not sure if it was, it was during college. So I think we tried to make the perfect paper airplane and just not just see how fast someone could throw it, but how long it would stay in the air and the aerodynamics of it. And we know nothing about aeronautics. At that point, we knew possibly completely nothing about aeronautics. So I think just that drive, little things like that is what I think for both of us the main driving force was when we did the research. When our research project just completely it engulfed the whole thing. When you see it everywhere, then I think it does that. So possibly no official projects and designs in the space industry, but yeah, we've done, yeah, I guess informal projects might count.
We kept doing fun stuff.
We kept doing fun stuff, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get kids to do fun stuff and maybe do something like this later.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I too feel that everything is not meant to be always hard. You can learn it in a very easy way and in a very interesting way. Who thought like you would have had interest in just making airplanes in school and
Yeah,
paper
just
and
doing so
stuff?
many personal airplanes in school like, continuously.
Yeah, yeah. So one of our teachers had recently attended an ISRO workshop for 8 days. It was very informative but very theoretical. She didn't think that it would make students interested in it, like because of the complexity of it. How will your products will like take care of that aspect of the space science?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is through unconventional methods, through making it a game, through making it, I mean, for lack of a better or a more technical way to describe it, to make it a game, to make it something where somebody is not telling you how something works, but you have to draw your own conclusions as to how it works, as to how a rocket is made or how a satellite is made. What exactly do you want that satellite to do?
Yeah.
Then how do you make it do it?
I mean, basically, you are not working on the topics, but you are playing with the topics.
You're playing with the topics. Yeah.
And that is how and subconsciously you are learning the topics.
Yeah.
And it stays for a longer duration, and at the same time, it keeps us engaged.
It keeps us engaged. You can do it again, and I think that's the proponent of what we are introduced to as design thinking, or the scientific method. We got where we are in science from people experimenting and people trying new things, and we're trying to bring that thing into space where maybe somebody tries to pad an egg before throwing it. Actually, we did that. We tried to save an egg from being smashed when we dropped it from the 4th floor. And how many layers of cotton do you need for that? Maybe you need to take an old bag and make it into a parachute. That's essentially what splashdown is when you reach back into the Earth's atmosphere. So yeah, that's, I think, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and basically making their own curiosity and getting that into answers.
Yeah.
And so we have one more question. What do you think about the space race among billionaires?
I think while it has value to, I'm trying to think of a non-controversial way to frame it. While it adds value to the technical side and the scientific side of space, okay, you can actually do it. You can go to space and you can sit there, even if you're not, you're not essentially a member of the crew as the functioning crew of the of space. I think the space race among billionaires is right now a political move. With them is a more, I want to be better than the next guy, and it comes back to the private companies. I think private companies in every field are like this. I mean we know a lot more about this because these people are multi-billionaires, multi-billionaires. But it's in any industry. I mean, the two uh, uh, marts outside our house are probably competing with each other the same way in stocking their products.
Yeah.
So I think, do you have anything else?
I mean, keeping the political side of it aside, these projects have been under development for 20 years and we are seeing the results right now. So it is just happening at once. So that is why it is creating more hype. But what we need to say is like all the hard work that went into it for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So even that is what we need to focus on. I mean, yeah, they launched themselves into space, but
they probably didn't need to.
Yeah, maybe,
but yeah,
there are obviously positive effects of it.
There are definitely positive effects, and while the humanitarian side of it is difficult to talk about, it happened, and it's those. I think out of that is what needs to come to light, rather than billionaires going to space. Possibly the work that people have put in needs to come to the light from this. So many people worked really hard for that to happen, and that should be a point of inspiration in this billionaires space race. I mean, they have the money, but they're not the one who made the rocket. I mean, with all due respect to, I order stuff from Amazon also. So yeah.
Okay, so I guess that was the last question, and thank you so much for being here. I would now like to invite Dia to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Aditi. Our two speakers today showed us that there is so much that we can discover and learn about the world that is far beyond our reach. We hope and wish them the very best for attaining their goal of making space-related education available to all children. I want to thank the President of Gujarat Research Society, our respected Principal, Mrs. Damyanti Bhattacharya, our Vice Principal, Mrs. Geeta Sanal, the school management, teachers, and the audience for being a part of the session today. We would also like to extend our gratitude towards Mrs. Shilpa Gandhi, the ISC coordinator and head, and Ms. Abir Premji, head of the mass media team, for their effective guidance and efforts. We also thank all our listeners for taking out their valuable time. The second session of Junoon JML promises to showcase many more intriguing topics of discussion and inspiring speakers. Do check us out on YouTube and Instagram. We have great surprises in store for you. And once again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.